These three reckless boys thought they could get away with anything, partying hard, chasing girls, and hiding behind their powerful police connections. But when they mess with the wrong girl, the granddaughter of a deadly war veteran, their world flips upside down. What happens next is a brutal lesson in fear, justice, and consequences. Katya Afonina is a 20-year-old beautiful girl who lives a modest life with her only family. Her grandfather Ivan, a decorated World War II veteran, in a small town in Russia. Their days are usually simple and filled with peace. But in a nearby neighborhood, there's a toxic trio of local boys, known for their unchecked behavior and weekly parties that often involve alcohol and paid companionship. Wednesdays are their designated nights of indulgence, but on this particular evening, they struggle to find a girl willing to join them. Unfortunately, Katya happens to be passing by that evening, and their attention turns to her. One of the boys, Vadim, recognizes her as a former classmate, and the other two urge him to approach her. So he meets her with Igor, and the two try to convince Katya to come upstairs and hang out with them. She's reluctant to join, but when they claim their friend is celebrating his birthday and continue begging, Katya finally gives in. Inside the apartment, Katya immediately becomes uneasy as she notices bottles of alcohol scattered across the table. But the boys coax her to drink and remind her of her school days when she was praised for her singing. Trying to be polite, Katya sings for the supposed birthday boy, unaware that Boris, the ringleader, has secretly laced her drink. Soon after, Katya begins to feel dizzy, and as she tries to leave, the effects of the drug overwhelm her. The boys then lead her into a separate room and close in on her. The assault begins with Boris, while the others help hold her down, ignoring her desperate attempts to resist. Hours pass, and now feeling totally broken and traumatized, Katya lies on the floor as the boys continue their assault. Eventually, they let her go late in the evening, humiliating her even further by forcing hush money into her purse. Katya stumbles outside and throws the money away before making her way home in silence. Meanwhile, Vadim begins to panic, fearing the possible consequences of their actions. But the others remain confident, claiming they can rely on Vadim's father, an influential police official. They believe they're untouchable. When Katya finally arrives home, she collapses in tears. Her grandfather immediately notices the bruises on her body and understands what has happened. Enraged, he demands to know who did this. When Katya reveals their names, he storms out, ready to take justice into his own hands. But a neighbor intercepts him, urging him to take the safer route and call the police. Shortly after, a team of police officers storm the boys' apartment and place the three young men under arrest. The lead inspector, visibly outraged by their actions, shares Ivan's fury. Determined to secure justice, he immediately begins the interrogation. At first, the boys deny everything, but the inspector separates them and applies psychological pressure, warning them of the harsh treatment awaiting them in prison if they don't confess. Eventually, the boys break down. Boris admits they brought Katya into the apartment and forced themselves on her. Even after their confession, the situation takes a sharp turn when Vadim's father, Colonel Nikolai, a high-ranking police official, arrives. He immediately tries to leverage his authority, requesting that the boys be released into his custody so he can handle the matter privately. But the inspector refuses, revealing that the suspects have confessed and that a blood-stained sheet recovered from the apartment corroborates Katya's story. When Nikolai insists again, the inspector demands an official order in writing. Just then, a junior officer reports that multiple neighbors have confirmed the boys' routine Wednesday parties, during which they often harass women. Their behavior is well known and widely condemned. Now overwhelmed by the evidence and witness testimony, Nikolai retreats, but it's clear he's not giving up. The next morning, Ivan awakens to find Katya missing from her room. Searching the house, he hears her crying in the bathroom. She confesses that she can barely face her reflection in the mirror, breaking Ivan's heart. He offers to call a trusted female doctor from their building, but Katya refuses, unwilling to let anyone else know what happened. Ivan gently tells her that the entire neighborhood already knows, due to the police activity the day before. Devastated, Katya admits she fears her reputation is permanently ruined. Eventually, the doctor checks on her and confirms that while her physical condition is fragile, she mostly needs rest and emotional support to recover fully. Later that day, Ivan receives troubling news. The boys have been released. Colonel Nikolai has used his influence to secure their freedom. Furious but composed, Ivan stays focused on finding justice for his granddaughter. The next day, he takes Katya to the police station to file a formal complaint and push the case to court. However, their efforts are crushed when they realize the officer in charge is corrupt and works for Nikolai. He mocks Katya's story and accuses her of seducing the boys deliberately, implying she orchestrated the encounter to trap one of them into marriage. Humiliated and emotionally drained, Katya loses all faith in the justice system. She confesses that she no longer has the will to fight and wishes only to forget the memory, but Ivan refuses to stay silent. The day after their visit to the station, Ivan spots the boys loitering in a parked car. He calmly approaches and tells them he has memorized their faces before walking away. The group, still arrogant and self-assured, brush it off. Frustrated by institutional corruption, Ivan visits an old friend who is a judge, hoping for help, but instead of support, the judge blames Katya and accuses her of immoral behavior. Disgusted, Ivan walks out, and that's when he realizes he can no longer rely on the system. Determined to seek justice on his own, he sells his seasonal property to fund what's to come. Later that day, Ivan returns home to find Katya's estranged mother has returned from Turkey with her new boyfriend. She showers Katya with gifts and pretends to be supportive, urging her to move on. But that evening, her facade drops when she privately asks Ivan for money. He immediately senses her true motives and confronts her. She admits she only returned to exploit the situation, even threatening to approach Nikolai for money instead. Furious, Ivan throws her belongings out and forbids her from ever returning. The following morning, Ivan visits the local park, where he finds his old friends playing chess. As he watches, the three boys enter their apartment across the street. Quietly, he slips away and heads to Katya's aunt's apartment. From its window, he realizes he has a clear, unobstructed view directly into the boys' living room. With a high-powered sniper rifle in hand and his target in plain sight, Ivan prepares to deliver the justice the legal system failed to provide. From his vantage point in the apartment across the street, Ivan locks onto his first target. With silent precision, he pulls the trigger. The bullet strikes Boris directly in the groin, leaving him permanently mutilated. Ivan immediately stashes the weapon and calmly rejoins his friends, blending into the background as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Boris is rushed to the hospital by his terrified friends. Later, Colonel Nikolai questions Vadim and Igor, suspecting that they might have been careless with their own firearms. But the two insist they were merely talking when the incident occurred. Realizing that something far more deliberate is happening, Nikolai begins to fear that someone is hunting them down. At the same time, the police inspector starts to grow suspicious of Ivan, believing he may have a motive for such attacks. He warns Ivan that Nikolai won't rest until he's been dealt with, one way or another. Days later, Ivan returns to Katya's aunt's apartment. This time, his target is Igor. He spots him relaxing in his parked car, completely unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Moments later, Ivan fires at the vehicle's gas tank, triggering a fiery explosion. Although Igor manages to escape, his lower body is severely burned, and doctors later confirm that he will never walk again. Now completely alarmed, Nikolai recognizes the pattern and warns Vadim to stay vigilant. He reinforces the house, fearing his son will be the next target. But Vadim's growing paranoia begins to consume him from the inside. Elsewhere, the inspector visits Katya's home to speak with Ivan. Although Ivan isn't there, Katya mentions that he often visits her aunt's apartment to take care of the birds. The inspector collects the keys and begins to piece together the truth behind the recent attacks. Around the same time, Nikolai arrives at Ivan's house with a search warrant and a team of officers. They thoroughly comb through the property, expecting to uncover the weapon, but find nothing. Just then, Katya's aunt arrives and requests her keys back. The police decide to search her apartment as well. Seeing this, Ivan grows tense, knowing that his rifle is hidden there. But to his surprise, the search turns up nothing. With no evidence to incriminate him, Nikolai confronts Ivan directly, pleading with him to spare Vadim. But Ivan coldly replies that something has already happened to him. Alarmed, Nikolai rushes home. When he knocks on the door, Vadim, paranoid and trembling, mistakes his father's voice for the assassins and fires through the door, fatally shooting him. When Vadim realizes what he's done, he collapses in terror and guilt, suffering a complete mental breakdown. A psychiatrist later concludes that his chances of recovery are slim. Sometime later, the inspector invites Ivan to his home. In a quiet revelation, he admits that he had confiscated the sniper rifle before the other officers could find it. Aware of the boy's crimes, he decided to let Ivan go with a warning, believing that justice had finally been served for Katya. In the final scene, Ivan returns home to hear Katya playing her guitar for the first time in a long while. He listens quietly from outside her door as she strums a soft, healing melody. Though the scars may remain, the sound of her voice signals the beginning of recovery and the quiet end of a storm of vengeance. And that's the story of the movie Voroshilovsky Strelok. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.